Hi, welcome back to Boxelize Game Channel. We're playing Malifaux, a character-driven skirmish game from Weird Miniatures. In this episode, we're going to be learning how to set up an encounter. Now, the first thing we need to do, and the rulebook gives us a nice setup sequence, is choose our encounter size. A short encounter between two crew box sets is around 25 to 30 soul stones, and that's defined as a scrap. More than that, 30 to 80 soul stones is a brawl, so you're having a lot more figures. But you get one extra card in your control hand. So we're going to have a. Remember, I taught you about the fate deck and your control hands, but we'll learn about that when we start playing. We're going to play a scrap. I'm going to scale it down from a box set. Let's say 15 soul stones. We're going to have one leader, a maximum starting soul stone pool size per crew of 8, and we need to grab ourselves 15 soul stones. So it's up to you. You can choose and dictate how you want. But 15 soul stones, that's going to give us about 2, 3, depending on what they are. Or you could even have 5 figures with that. I like to keep some paper scraps in my Malifaux accessories box here, so I can just write some notes down. So we're going to start with 15 soul stones. Next, we choose our factions. We don't have to choose our leaders or any of our minions at this point. We just have to choose which faction we want to play. I'm going to choose the Neverborn versus the Arcanists. Next step is to choose an encounter location. And you can either do this randomly using a fate deck, or players can just choose amongst themselves. All right? So I suggest that you're probably going to be doing a choice, because it depends on what terrain you have. But let me show you how to do this randomly. So what we do is we grab ourselves a fate deck and we draw 2 cards. The first card determines whether we're playing indoors or outdoors. So we turn it over and we've got a 13. We look at our chart and this tells us that we're looking at an indoor location. We look at our second card, which is a 1, and because we're playing an indoor encounter location, we look it up on this chart and it says we're playing in the theatre. So we have sewers, Arcanist Lab, Resurrectionist Labs, Library, Necropolis. You can see there's tons of stuff here that are indoor and are outdoor likewise. And then we can head over to the rulebook and see what a large theatre looks like. And it suggests that we have for a large theatre, a stage that is a height to severe terrain, some impassable terrain, a pipe organ, 1/2-inch walls to mark off a 6 by 6 inches back room, and we've got crates and barrels that are severe and offer covering. And as you flip through, you can see there's all sorts of different suggestions for the different types of terrain. There's the research facility here, the warehouse, guild holding facility. So all the rules are here about what that terrain should look like. Of course, you know, the suggestion here is that you've got unlimited terrain, but be creative. I'm going to use my dungeon command, so I know that I've got outdoor or indoor locations. So we've gone for the theatre, so that means I'm going to use not the outdoor but the indoor type tiles. And we've got, as it goes, we already have some terrain on here like this. Some crates and barrels, which is perfect because that's exactly what it suggested here. Crates and barrels, which is severe and offers covering. So we've got that kind of terrain. The other thing is it does say if you're doing indoor, the suggestion is that to emulate enclosed spaces of an indoor location with a solid ceiling, assume all walls, so these are going to be our black outlines here, and of course whatever terrain you're using, apply these rules. It doesn't matter, it's just cosmetics really. Assume all walls are height 4, so that's 4 inches, and all models with flight or float may not pass over indoor walls. Okay, so they're going to be able to pass over things like crates and barrels, but they're not going to be able to fly through these walls. These are impassable walls. And I think also we've got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, this is a 5 by 5, maybe a little bit bigger enclosed area, which is exactly what the back room was asking for, a 6 by 6 back room. Okay, with some crates and barrels. We've got what have we got? We've got a throne here and some some chests. Alright, and we've got some severe territory here, or hazardous territory terrain here. So I think this is going to suit us fine for a large theatre, our Dungeon Command terrain. And obviously you're just going to use your imagination, use whatever you have to represent that terrain. And if you don't want to go for the random setup, then you can just choose. You can customise this however you wish, and there's indoor locations, outdoor locations, a ton of stuff. Alright, so we've got our location set. The next thing we can do is that for each of these there's some special features. So we're going to flip one more card and we get a 2. And we look on this table here and we find a 2 is a bag of soul stones. And then we just look this up further down in the manual. On page 71 we have a list of location features. There's all sorts of different things: bogs, hazardous terrain, hanging tree, graveyard, whatever we want to find. So a bag of soul stones here will be at the beginning of the counter. Each player places a marker on the table at least 10 inches away from the deployment zone. And any model with used soul stone ability may interact with this and gain 2 soul stones. So use whatever you've got available. Remember, a marker is a 30mm token. I'm going to use these scrap counters. Let's grab our terrain and get this set up. And I'm going to shuffle these and set it up kind of randomly, just to see how that works. And then each player is going to place their bag of soul stones on the map. So here's my terrain set up. I'm going to place these 2 scrap counters here ready for the start of the encounter. Remember too, I had these cards from Tabletop Geeks. There's one here for a bag of soul stones. So I'm going to place this aside to remind us what these tokens do. Okay, the other suggestion from the rulebook was that we had a stage, which is height 2, and a pipe organ, which is impassable. So let's say this is the pipe organ and this is the stage. So I'm going to grab a couple of counters to remind me. I'm going to stick at these. So we've got a height 2 and impassable. The next stage is to choose our deployment types. There's 3 types of deployment. It could be in the diagonals, standard, or corners. So if we place this in the orientation of what our landscape is going to look like, diagonal would mean that we deploy in each of these diagonals, and I think it's 12.5 inches from the centre. Standard deployment is 6 inches away from each edge, and corner deployment says a 12-inch square in each corner. And once more, our method of choosing the deployment is to draw or flip a fake card, and it's a 7, which from the chart tells us is a standard deployment, 6 inches out from each end. Given I'm working on a scaled down map, I'm just going to say the first 1, 2, 3, 4 inches. Okay, so I'm going to take everything down by a third. Again, do remember, you don't have to do this randomly. You can choose if you wish. There is a handy little setup card here as well, which I've been using to refer to. The next thing is, once we've chosen our deployment type, is determine our strategies. Strategies is all about determining how the game is won. We know where the encounter is being played out. We're playing on this theatre. And what we don't know yet is what our winning condition is, or what our objectives are, and that's what the strategies are about. There's 2 choices here, core or expanded, and in this respect, players are going to have to determine this for themselves. Do we want to play a basic type of encounter, a core encounter, or if we're feeling more comfortable with basic encounters, we can go for an expanded encounter, and this kind of gives you a nearly inexhaustible supply of strategies to choose from. Let's start with a core encounter, because that makes it make sense for teaching a demo. So once more, we flip from our fate deck. This time though, each player is going to flip their own card. So what that means is that we could potentially have both players with different victory conditions. Okay? Because this game isn't like you win, I win, it's victory points. Normally it's 2 victory points for hitting the win condition and then 4 victory points for doing it in an exceptional kind of way. And maybe you'll play a fixed number of encounters, and then whoever gets the most victory points across multiple encounters is the victor. Or it could well be that you both end up with the same number of victory points in an encounter and declare a draw. So I've shuffled up a second fate deck for the Arcanists. So our Neverborn are going to go with a 3, and our Arcanists are going to go with a 1. Okay, so let's have a quick look at the core encounter chart. If both players had chosen the same or flipped the same encounter, then they would be on what we call a shared strategy. If they both have different strategies, then we're called individual strategies. So this case, we both have individual strategies. So the Neverborn have got Destroy the Evidence because they flipped a 3, and Arcanists have Treasure Hunt because they flipped a 1. And there's 2 versions of each of these strategies. There's a shared one and an individual one. The fortunate thing is that I've got these cards, so here's a complete list of the simple strategies. We've got a line in the sand, claim, jump, deliver a message. Here we go, destroy the evidence. And in this strategy, the opposing crew stumbled upon some potentially damning evidence, and our crew would prefer it didn't exist. We've got to destroy that evidence before it's too late. There's going to be 3 pieces of evidence, and our victory condition is that if at least 2 of those pieces of evidence were removed, then we get 2 victory points. If we remove all 3, then we get 4 victory points. So I've created myself 3 evidence markers on 30mm counters. Let's assume the Neverborn are up this side. So we need to place 1 in their deployment zone. Let's place it here, and the rules told us within 10 inches of their deployment zone for the other 2. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So anywhere down here. Well, let's move it back a little bit because it said at least 8. So let's place them on here. They've got to be at least 8 inches apart. Okay, so this is the evidence that we have to destroy. We'll keep this face up over here as the Neverborn strategy. And now for the Arcanists, it was Treasure Hunt. So for the Arcanists, they've discovered the location of a valuable artifact and they've got to take possession of it. We need to place a single 30mm treasure counter in the centre of the table. And it looks like we can take an action to pick up this treasure, and we score victory points by carrying it, and if it's being carried and we've taken it back to our deployment zone, then we get 4 victory points. So maybe, I don't know, maybe that's a little easier, but we've got to keep hold of it, that's the main thing. Once more, we'll grab a token, and it's got to go in the centre of the table. Now the centre is impassable terrain, so just to make it interesting, it's still touching the centre. Yeah, let's do that. So once they grab it out of this little crevice here, which they can reach in and grab from, then they can pick it up. So they need to be in contact with that treasure. Let's say that's the case. I decided to replace my terrain markers just to help me. So I've got a green one for the big green circle, that's our height 2 stage, and a blue one for the impassable pipe organ. This one's alright. Normally you wouldn't put these terrain features within the deployment zones. You'd keep them kind of completely empty. Next step now is to hire our crews. We've got 15 soul stones with which to recruit. I'm going to try and keep the number of models down to a minimum, I think, just for the sake of the demo. Keep it down to say three or four, and try and pick models which I think, given the objectives, are going to be quite manoeuvrable and can kind of play off each other and move around the theatre quite well. All right, I'm going to go and pick some crews and show you what I've come up with. Starting with the Neverborn, we have our master, Pandora. Masters, they don't cost any soul stones. Your master is free. Instead, they bring a soul stone cash. Pandora here brings 5 soul stones, and they're going to be playable during the game. So we've still got our 15, and with our 15 we can now hire our crews. First minion to be hired is Candy. I've not painted these figures up, they're base coated. Candy's expensive, she costs 8, so that gives me 7 left. And with my 7, I'm going to hire 2 Sorrows for 3 soul stones each. This one I've not base coated at all, so I'll have to do a little bit of work on that before we start playing. Meet the Neverborn crew. Pandora, Candy and 2 Sorrows. That's a cost of 14. We've got 1 soul stone left unspent. So Pandora's going to take this unspent soul stone, use whatever markers, but you can write it on a bit of paper if you want to, and that's going to be available for her to play during the game. And we're going to learn how to use soul stones during gameplay as we play. But in addition to any left unspent, we also get whatever the cash was that our master provided. So Pandora provides an additional 5 soul stones. Remember, she didn't cost anything. This number here is how many soul stones she brings to the encounter. So we get an additional 5. That's a 6 in total for the Neverborn. Now let's meet the Arcanists. First our master, Rasputina. And she brings a cache of 4 soul stones. And our crew, well, we're going to take the mighty Ice Gamin at a cost of 9. That's leaving us 6. We're going to spend 4 on Ice Gamin, which leaves us with 2 unspent. So Rasputina starts with 2 soul stones plus the 4 that she brings to the table. Before we deploy our crews though, there's one final thing that we can do, and that is what we call schemes. We've got our strategies, that's known to us. We know that Neverborn have got to destroy the evidence. The Arcanists have got to do the treasure hunt. But we can also select, and for a scrap, it's 0, 1 or 2 schemes. Once more, they're all here in the rulebook. There's general schemes that anyone can take, and there's faction-specific schemes. And then there's some master-specific schemes as well. You don't have to take these, but you can take up to 2, and for every scheme that you don't take, you'll get an additional 2 soul stones in your soul stone pool. And these are schemes that you'll take, and they'll be secret. Well, let me give you an example. So we've got one here for Pandora. It says if Pandora kills the enemy master or henchman with the self-loathing spell, we score 2 victory points. Now that's a great one for Pandora. So one of her spells is going to be self-loading. Incidentally, a henchman is an alternative to masters. I'm not going to go into those in the beginning tutorial, but that's probably a bit more advanced gameplay. Alright, so we've got these schemes, these secret objectives that you can perform. I've given you an overview of what they are. I'm going to leave them out of this demo, I think, and I'm going to leave out the 4 soul stones that you would get, because that would take us both over the 8 maximum anyway. Just keep it simple for now. be aware of them when you're playing your encounters against your mates. You can set up these secret schemes, and that's going to add a little bit more of strategy to your games. So we've chosen our schemes, or taken some soulstone bonus. The next thing is then to deploy our crews. Let's get these Neverborn down here in this room. I think there's a doorway here. Before we start our encounter, we mustn't forget we have a bag of soulstones each. At the beginning of the encounter, each player places a marker at least 10 inches away from the deployment zone, and that's our bag of soulstones. 10 inches, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's going to be in this middle zone somewhere. Let's have one here, and I guess one here. That'll be great. That's it for now. Join me next time as we begin the first turn of the game.